Okay, hello everybody, and welcome once again to a new session of EBU Talks. Great to see you all here. Thank you all so much for joining the session this afternoon. Um, I'm here to moderate and just to open and close our session today, so I will not take up too much time. I'm really pleased to see lots of well, I don't know if they're new names, but they're names that I've not seen before. So if it's your first time joining us, thank you. Otherwise, it may be that you are in a list and I didn't see your names before, but I'm really, really pleased to see you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing in the chat where you're all joining from. I have to confess, sometimes this does show up a little bit of how can I say this? A little bit that my lack of geographical knowledge, or at least my knowledge of flags, is sometimes a little bit lacking. So I see flags and I'm not always sure where they are. But thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Um, as you all know, ground rules for EBU Talks, ground rules. What I'd like you to do is all to keep your microphones muted for the beginning of the session. Hi, Lorna. I'd like you to type any questions that you have for our special guest speaker, Dr. Laurie Davis, into the chat. And hopefully at the end of the session, we'll have some time to do some Q&A. We'll see how the time is going. We might do this using the microphones, or we might do it through the chat. We'll see how much time we have, and we'll see. I feel like this could become a very philosophical discussion, so it could be a little bit long. So we might use the chat. But please don't hesitate to put your questions into the chat and we'll address them as we can. So hello to Victoria. Hi to who else has put something in there too? Mantiata. Hello, Mantiata. I confess yours is the flag I was not sure about. Hello, Haroon, Melina, Mamukete. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Oh, and Dawn, is it Dawn? Dawn. Hi, Dawn, joining us from Edmonton as well. Listen, guys, thank you so much. Dorrington is here. I remember Dorrington from last time. Tambu is in Johannesburg. Wonderful. Listen, this is great. Miriam, I think you're in Luxembourg, if I remember. Thank you all for being here. Today's guest is a very special one, a good friend of Helen, who is also here. Helen, as you all know, chairperson of the board here at EBU. So I would like you to give a big and very warm EBU welcome to Dr. Laurie Davis, who's joining us today, also from Alberta in Canada. So it's very early in the morning. Well, no, not very, very early, but early in the morning for you.
It's great. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm alive and awake and well.
Well, that sounds like a perfect start. That sounds like a perfect start. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Laurie Davis, and she's going to share with us a world of expertise. You are not ready for the presentation you're going to see today. Thank you all very much for being here. And I'm going to hand you over to our special guest speaker for today's edition of EBU Talks, Dr. Laurie Davis. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you, Helen, for the introduction to EBU. I appreciate that. And welcome, everybody. And it's so wonderful to see people from all over the world. And that's been kind of the nature of our calls lately, particularly since meeting Helen and some of her cohorts as well. So I'm just really excited to be here. This has been a message that I've been sharing for almost 35 years. And that is the message of how important our self-worth is to have intact, have it repaired, so that we can have the best life ever and put our best version of ourselves out there. So, just to get started, let me just ask a few questions, and you can answer them in your head, or you could put your answer in the chat if you like. So, I want you to think about a time when you were in a room and you didn't feel like you belonged. You felt like you were out of your league. Have you ever had that experience that you thought, oh, wow, like I'm just, those insecurities showed up and you thought, wow, even if everybody in the room had done exactly the same amount of work as you, they've got the same credentials as you, the same background, but you still didn't quite feel right about it. And I'm getting lots of answers. Yes, many times, many times. So that's the first question. So just maybe jot that question down because the next time that that happens for you, that's one of the reflections of your lack of self-worth is struggling. All right. So, and we'll get down to the nitty-gritty of that in a little bit. So I'm seeing lots of yeses. I have been there too. The next question is, I want you to think back and how old were you when you had your very first sort of, you were hurt or maybe you saw something you shouldn't have seen in the adult world, or you had some kind of trauma. It's when you first realize that the world is not a perfect place. And maybe my family's not a perfect family, but many of us had a lot of early childhood negative experiences. And it's usually between the ages of 0 to 18. So just think back, maybe you had a nasty teacher or your mom didn't get to a concert that you were in, or it could be anything, anything at all. And usually it's early childhood negative experiences that impact our self-worth. As a matter of fact, by the time I'm three, I started to make decisions about my value in the family, in my classroom, in the community. I start making decisions about whether or not I have any value based on what's going on around me. So let's say, for example, if I had been adopted or I had been abandoned or I had been, grandma brought me up, or there was no dad in the picture or no mom in the picture. These are things that impact us. And today we call them trauma. Now, in my generation, I just turned 77. So in my generation, when anything bad happened like that, you weren't allowed to talk about it. You weren't allowed to have feelings. My mom would say, now, Laurie, it's not polite for little girls to be angry, when I'd be really angry and I'd want to stomp my feet. Or at Christmas time, she would say, we would all be excited. There'd be presents. And she'd say, now just calm down. Just calm down. So we weren't allowed to be angry. We weren't allowed to be excited. We weren't allowed to be disappointed. And so what happens with that kind of environment? Eventually, you don't even know how you feel because you were never really allowed to express how you were really feeling. And so we start to put on masks as early as 3. So I act this way when I'm with my mom, and then I act this way when I'm with my dad, and I act this way when I go to church, and then I act this way when I'm at a party, and then I act this way when I'm with my boyfriend or my girlfriend. You see what I mean? So we're constantly spending most of our life adjusting ourselves to other people and the environment around us so that we fit in, because it's very important when we're young to fit in. And many people feel left out because they don't know they can't fit in. Okay. It's very stressful. So that's the second question. All right. The third question is, when someone pays you a compliment, I might say, Louise, you're looking so beautiful today. Or Helen, that is the most amazing color on you. You just glow in that blue. Well, a lot of times, here's what we do with a compliment. We either dismiss it, we make fun of it, we discard it. Somebody might say, "Oh, I love your jacket." "Oh, this whole thing? I got this at the secondhand store." Or, "I love the way your haircut looks." "What? Oh, she shouldn't have cut it this short. I don't like it this short." You see how we will reject, neglect, dismiss, make fun of because we're uncomfortable with the compliment. And that's the low self-worth that's not used to being validated. Because when we've had these setbacks, losses, and disappointments, our self-worth takes a beating, a real beating. And then what happens? We go outside of ourselves to try and find it because we came with it. You just ask a little girl who's 3 years old, all dressed up, and you say to her, Oh my goodness, you look so smart. You look so beautiful. And she goes, I know. Well, that's because she knows her value. She hasn't been disconnected yet. So that compliment got received. But as you get older and you start rejecting that. So we go outside. So it could be money. It could be an education. It could be renovate my kitchen. It could be a new vehicle. And we just keep jumping around to pieces on the outside of us to get validated. That's why schooling is so important in terms of validation, but sometimes the system sets us up that the only way I could be validated at home is if I did well in school. Well, there's more to life than school. There's more to life than our work because we're holistic beings. We're not just, we shouldn't, oh, and the other things that we do is we can become workaholics, overachievers. I did the good look thing. My husband even teases me to this day, 35 years later. Laurie, when I met you, you wouldn't even go to the garbage can without your makeup on. Well, that's because I was trying to hide the shame from my early childhood negative experiences. And nobody escapes. I'm here to tell you, if you don't think anything happened to you prior to when you were 30, I got news for you. Oh, yes. Because how we're living now is reflective of those traumas if we didn't have the opportunity to heal them at the time. And for most of us, that doesn't happen because most people don't even know we're having those experiences. But nobody escapes. What are there? 8.5 billion people on the planet right now? Well, I can put everything I own on the fact that nobody is going to escape without having some setbacks, some losses, some disappointments. And then some people do the destructive kind of outside pieces like drugs, alcohol, um, gambling, pornography. Let me do some things that try to make me feel good because inside I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling like I'm good enough. Answer this question. Have you had those times when you've never felt good enough? You weren't a good enough mom, you weren't a good enough wife, you weren't a good enough boyfriend, you weren't a good enough student. Has anybody ever had those feelings like you just weren't good enough? So, in the throes of that, many years ago, after teaching school for 15 years, and then I was in marketing and sales for another 12 years, and I realized, and then started my own business, this business that I'm in right now, Self Worth, the Missing Link. I thought, wow, I came home one day and I said to my husband, I said, Ron, I have made a discovery. Well, he said, what did you discover? I said, well, here's what I know. After teaching school, working in marketing and sales, being educated, we've got a great business, but here's what I'm finding out. And you might want to write these three things down, they're worthy. Number one, most people are walking around feeling like there's something wrong with them. And on the outside, everything could look perfect. They might have the perfect home, the perfect kids, the perfect relationship, the perfect look, everything. But inside, they're really feeling differently. So that's a self-worth thing. Um, Number two, many people lack confidence. Well, that's not the same thing as self-worth. Self-worth is about value, putting value on myself and my skills, and we'll talk a little more about that in a bit. But initially, initially, that's a self-worth issue. Feeling always looking for the flaws. What's wrong with me? And you know what? Well-intentioned family and friends will even say to you, what's wrong with you? Why did you do that? What's wrong with you? So the focus can be what's wrong with me. The second thing is confidence. Now that's different. Confidence is the ability to take risks, try something different, try something new, move to a different country, whatever it is. Many people get married. They don't know if it's going to work out or not, but they do it anyway. That's called confidence. You see, we're looking at taking those leaps of faith that you don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you have the confidence to do it. Now, here's the catch. I know lots of really confident people, and some of those people have absolutely no self-worth. Even though they look successful, they are successful, they've, graduated from university, they've got a great job, but you can still have low self-worth, even with those outside pieces looking good. And then the third area is communication. How well can you communicate to get the results you want, both personally and professionally? All relationships depend on effective communication. And what I realized was, wow, nobody knows how to talk properly to get what they need or want. They're afraid to ask the hard questions. They don't want to, they don't want to hear anybody say no to them because then they'll feel rejected. Well, that's the low self-worth voice. So we have two voices in there. There's a low self-worth voice, the one that's full of fear and doubt and insecurities and not thinking you're good enough and that you can't make it and you're not going to be successful. And then the high self-worth voice are the ones that go, of course I can do that. Absolutely, I deserve to be wealthy. I deserve to be healthy. Yeah, maybe my background wasn't that great, but we have a perfect example of that in America. If you look at the life of Oprah Winfrey, she had a terrible background, but she turns out to be one of the wealthiest and most successful women in the country. So, three things to imagine if all three things were intact. So, here's a little contest. And you don't have to share it out loud, just put it on your paper. On a scale of 0 to 10, where do you feel your personal self-worth level is right now? That feeling of deserving, that feeling of value, that I know what I'm worth, that I know what I'm doing. I feel secure. You could throw me in a room full of political leaders and I'd be just as comfy as the cushion on the couch. Where's your level of self-worth? Then confidence, knowing that you can do anything that you want and going for it without talk. You see, and I'm going to talk about the heart versus the head. You see, this is very intelligent in some ways, but in some ways it's an idiot because you can have a terrific idea and this will talk you out of it. We can talk ourselves into and out of anything. And here's the problem. When you're really intelligent, and I know you all are, or you wouldn't be here, we are really better at that than most people. We can talk ourselves into and out of anything, whether it's good for us or not, whether it's good for us or not. Okay, we'll just ask you to mute. Yeah, there we go. So if you can relate to that, put it up in the chat. Can you relate to that? Talking, it's like this inner conflict. And that's because the head says one thing and the heart is saying something else. So here's the deal on this one. How would you measure your level of self-confidence? Thank you for doing that, putting your little scores up there. That's good. You see, the head, the intellect wants us to do things properly. It wants us to do everything right. The heart wants us to do the right things. So when the heart says, hey, you should be doing this, or that feels right, and then this talks you out of it, then there's a conflict, you see? So a lot of us are struggling with that conflict of having a great outcome, And of course, that impacts our ability to make decisions, which I'm going to discuss as well, because our self-worth impacts every decision we make comes from that place of worthiness. So if my self-worth isn't there, my decisions are not going to be as effective. Our self-worth determines who we marry, how much money we make, who we have for friends, how well I do in my schooling, It's all of that. Even comes down to health. And we just had a discussion about that in a meeting that I was in. And then the third thing, how are your communication skills? Are you getting the results you want? Whether it's a job interview or a meeting with somebody or a personal situation where you have to have a difficult conversation with your partner, how good are you? Because in every conversation, there's a buyer and a seller. And I always love being the seller because then I'm going to see the results and learning how to negotiate and be able to take complicated communication systems or items and make them simple so the other person can understand you. The thing is, um, in all of my years in business, 35 coming up, and working with people, the most powerful hurt they've ever had, regardless of the situation. So let's say as a child, somebody was sexually assaulted, or maybe their parents got a divorce when they were 10, or, something happened. Their biggest hurt wasn't the situation, it wasn't the abuse, and it wasn't the divorce. It was the fact that nobody was listening. Nobody heard me, that I was upset, or that I was scared, or that I was lost, or feeling alone. Right? And here's a good one, finding it hard to ask for what I want. Thank you, Louise, for that. That's the low self-worth, because the low self-worth doesn't think it deserves anything. So what if I ask somebody for something and they go, sure. Oh, you want to borrow $10,000? Sure, Louise, I'll lend it to you. We don't ask because we don't want to hear no, because the low self-worth can't handle the no, because the no translates into rejection. One of our biggest fears is rejection. Very good. Look at the comments. These are great. I'm just going to take a second and have a little boo here. Fear of expressing myself. That's an excellent one. Yes, asking for what I want. It's our Shona culture that it's normalized to fit in, to wear many masks. Okay. And I see. Wow. Yeah. Cool. All right. So the self-worth is really important. So now what do we do once we here are some situations that would have impacted my self-worth? All right. So see if any of these you have a connection with. And if you do, they're just a word or two. You can jot them down. So if you can connect with any of these, feel free, or you can put them in the chat. One thing that affects our self-worth is losing a parent, either through death or divorce or separation. So if I grew up with one parent, that can impact my self-worth. Why did my dad go? Didn't he think I was worth staying for? So we start to doubt that. Um, or if you grew up in a home where there were alcohol and drugs. My dad was a World War II veteran, so he came home from World War II. He was already an alcoholic when my mom married him. So there was alcohol in my home the whole time I was growing up. Um, Drugs in the home, any kind of abuse, whether that's physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, people calling you down, saying mean things to you, emotional abuse. In other words, you were loved, but there were strings attached. I'll love you if you do well in school, or I'll love you if you take the garbage out. There were strings attached. Perhaps I endured foster care or I was adopted. A blended family. I've got 2 kids, he's got 3 kids, we get married and we've got 5 kids, and now there's chaos and confusion, and that can impact somebody's self-worth. Definitely bullying. We all know that's a problem, and not just in schools, but you can be bullied in the workplace. You can be bullied in a relationship. I have a couple of clients right now that are being bullied by their children, their adult children. So that can happen. If there was financial stressors in the home, poverty, that can impact our self-worth. Loss of a loved one, granny passes away, and she was your biggest support system. Moving around, oh, this was one of mine. By the time I finished grade 12 and graduated from high school, I'd been in 13 schools. One year I was in 3 schools. But I always say that's why I have this magnificent personality, because I had to make friends really fast because I knew they weren't going to be in my life for very long. Neglect. Actually, neglect is a form of abuse. In other words, my basic needs not being met. That can tamper with your self-worth. Being in trouble with the law, can't make friends easily. So, as an adult, here are some of the things that can happen. Side effects, the sidebar of low self worth. Allergies have been connected to low self worth, asthma, cutting, self harm, uh, autoimmune disorders like psoriasis, eczema, migraine headaches, infections. These are things that are all reflective of the self worth not being repaired. The body takes it on. Speech impediments, nail biting, nightmares, can't sleep without the lights off on. Uh, Whether I'm shy, withdrawn, depressed, and sometimes perhaps even thinking of suicidal thoughts or a plan or an action, that's when the self worth is in big trouble. Big trouble. Eating disorders, perfectionism. These are what we call side effects of low self worth. People pleasing. Oh, I was one of those. If you asked if I had was going to have you over for dinner, it would take me 3 weeks to get ready for you because I'd have to change the tablecloth 3 times and decide what I'm going to eat and change the menu. And I did that because my low self-worth was seeking approval because I didn't feel good enough on my own. I was always searching for the approval of others so I could feel good. Unable to be alone with myself. Poor communication skills come from low self-worth. Sometimes I'll even avoid hugs and physical affection. Maybe I can't look at people straight in the eye. And these are all symptoms of low self-worth. So I really don't believe anybody escapes. I'm sorry. But is there hope at the end of the tunnel? Well, that's where I come in. Because 35 years ago, when I decided that I wanted to focus on those 3 things, helping others feel good about themselves, it was actually working on the repair and restoration of your self-worth. So you can have the best life and be the best version of yourself because you're not going to have it as long as you don't have that intact. And I tried to find a book that had been written about it. I couldn't find a book. Nobody had ever written a paper about it. There was zip. There was nothing available to educate myself because it wasn't even in our vocabulary. As a young school teacher, self-esteem, self-worth, that wasn't even a word. So of course there had been nothing done about it. And then I find out my conventional friends who are in mental health care, like my social worker friends, counselors, psychologists, it's not in any of their training. So they don't know anything about it either. They're now my clients. They come to find out more so that they can be more effective helping their clients. So if you're interested in the repair and restoration of your self-worth, you first have to say, you know, on a scale of 0 to 10, where would I put my self-worth right now and be really honest about it? And we are all victims. Children are victims. They don't know how to defend themselves. So we become victims and then we start acting like a victim and then we start being mean to ourselves. Have you ever been mean to yourself? Not taking care of yourself, not eating properly, not getting your rest, not treating yourself. These are all symptoms of low self-worth. You go shopping and you buy for everybody else and then you don't get anything for yourself. That's your low self-worth. That's an indicator. So gradually and over time, not a whole lot of time, we can actually repair and restore our self-worth and take it back and be that person that you were meant to be. So if you, I don't know how many of you may have had children or you have children or you've had a baby. I always use that example because when you are born, put some words up in the chat that would describe a brand new life. And I'd really like you to put those words in the chat. So if a friend came in today and they had this brand new little person that they just brought to the planet, please put in the chat some words you would use to describe that little person. Let's see what you're going to put up. Hopeful. Mm-hmm. That little person, beautiful, a blessing. I'm going to take time with this now because this is important. Adorable, a reason to live. Would you agree that I'm going to put up, they're perfect? Even if they have some little thing wrong with them, they're still perfect. Joyful, an angel. And would you agree that they're smart? They have you figured out in very short order, right? They're smart, they're curious, they're pure, innocent, right? They're pure and they're innocent. They're brave. They're resilient. I remember one time my niece, she was 3 and her new baby brother was 3 weeks old, and mom was on the phone just for a minute, not even gone a minute. And my niece had him by the arm and she flung him and he landed on the carpet and he was fine. He bounced like a ball. Resilient, resilient. Okay. Does everybody see the words there? That is who you are. That is your authentic self. That's how you got here. And then all those things I talked about started to happen. Now, by the time I'm 18, I may not feel innocent anymore. I may not feel perfect anymore. I may not feel like I'm an angel or that I'm a reason for my parents to still be alive. I might not feel like I'm very inspirational. But in fact, that low self-worth takes you back to your authentic self. So the people in the room today, whoever you are, and I'm not seeing you, but when you, by the time you're 18, you're no longer that perfect little being that got here. You are now the result of the trauma. And so trying to fit in, wearing the masks, adjusting your personality for this person or that person, the people pleasing, the blah, 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 blah. So who you are today is a reflection of that self-worth. And so what I like to do for people is not change you, take you back to who you really are. And then you feel really good about yourself. Imagine if every day I was an angel, I was joyful, I was inspirational, I acted smart, I was, lived life to its fullest, and I accomplish things. But you see, your self-worth doesn't matter the self-worth doesn't care about accomplishment. It doesn't care about achievement. It doesn't care about whether you have money or not. It doesn't care about success. None of those things will ever repair or restore your self-worth. And you know that, and I know that, because when we look at celebrities who've taken their own lives, or we have people on the street with a PhD. We have, you see, none of that has any impact on your self-worth. Self-worth is an inside job, an inside job. So I have to recognize, I want my self-worth back because you came with it. You see, do you want to take it back? Well, it can be done. How much more functional would I be if I was living from my place of authenticity, which is who you were when you got here? And I've had lots of people say to me, oh, Dr. Laurie, my self-worth is just great. I'm good. And I'll look at them and say, you know what? Your life isn't reflective of that. Your life is not reflective.
But in fun anyway. I have
Okay. Somebody want to mute? Somebody want to mute? So taking us back to who we really are, right? Our blueprint, yes, our DNA. And self-worth is an inside job. Financial stress is a terrible thing, and asking for financial support is not easy. That's correct. So I have to go inside myself and find out why I'm having financial stress. Why is that? Because maybe I don't think I deserve to be paid a certain amount, or I don't think I deserve to be successful. It all goes back to that. So now I would encourage all of you by saying your self-worth is already in you. It's already there. You don't have to go looking for it down the hall or down the street or down. You don't have to. It's already there. You came with it because God didn't make any junk. So I want that on a t-shirt. Maybe I saw it on a t-shirt. I don't know. God didn't make any junk. And it doesn't matter about your circumstances. They're just circumstances. They change. And when I change, my circumstances change. So about 2 weeks ago, I lost my dog. And my dog was like my little kid. And I know that's hard to say, but it's actually true. And he became a member of our family. And he was funny and he was fun. And he was like, he went everywhere. He loved to go shopping and he's in my face. I can't even cut food without thinking about him. And Helen had an opportunity to meet him. And I just can't believe he's gone. And I said to my husband, I started looking at, um, little videos and pictures. He was a boxer and he was so cute. And I said to Ron, you know what? I need a boxer or two in my life right now again. I don't want to wander around the next 10 years being sad because I lost my dog. He gave us more than he took. So lo and behold, last night about 10 o'clock, I'm scrolling. Here's this beautiful boxer in Calgary. They need adopted. He's 12 weeks old. It's a she. You see, because if my low self-worth would say, oh, maybe you didn't take proper care. He kind of died short of when he should have. You don't deserve to have a dog. One's good enough. You see, I could have easily talked myself out of it because of the sadness that came with losing him. But I right away said, no, I deserve a new boxer in my life. I love that breed. You see? So you have to manufacture your desires and so on. And a lot of motivational speakers think it's about positive thinking and the law of attraction and all that kind of stuff. No, it has everything to do with you. You are the captain of your ship and the master of your soul and whatever you want. And I'm living proof of that. My parents, we never had a home. I lived in boarding houses and apartment buildings. My dad was an accountant and he worked for a big steel company, so we moved all the time. We'd come home from school, my mom would be packing the boxes. We didn't even know we were moving. But I didn't allow any of that to impact what was happening for me inside. I always knew I was great with people. I had my first business when I was 12 because my dad had lost his job for a few months. And I knew my parents were struggling for grocery money. So I went to my dad and I said, I can help. I'm 12. And he says, well, how could you help? I said, well, I can babysit. I can keep house. I know how to walk a dog. I know how to mow some grass. So my dad and I sat at the dining room table and we're talking 1962. There was no technology. And we didn't have a photocopier. So we handmade flyers on construction paper with colored pencils. And I put the phone number on it, big numbers. And I went up and down my street and I put one in every mailbox. The phone started ringing. I went, yay. I had all the babies sitting on my street after school, taking care of somebody. And pretty soon I was able to feed my family. Well, boy, did I learn a lot. And when my dad finally got back to work, he said, now you can stop. You don't need to do that anymore. And I said, oh no, I'm loving it. Now I can buy my own clothes. I can help out with books. And I was an entrepreneur right then and there. And even when I was teaching school, I got my education, teaching school, I still had a business on the side. I had a catering business. And I was bringing food and sandwiches and stuff to the staff, and they were buying stuff from me all the time. So whatever you want, you can do it. But the low self-worth will be the only thing that stands in your way of finding the perfect mate, of having the greatest job, getting the environment where you want to be in. And the other thing is, when someone else tells you that you cannot have something or you cannot do something, that low self-worth will buy in faster than flint. Because one of the other behaviors of the low self-worth, you think that that person's opinion has more value than yours. And so a lot of us buy into what other people are telling us because we think they're smarter, they're more educated, they've got it together, when the only person that knows what's best for you is you. And the high self-worth will guide and direct you to that. We all deserve the best. So I'm going to wrap that up, Louise, because there's lots of great comments. I'd like to go through the chat, and I thank everybody for listening. That's just like a thumbnail sketch of who I am and what we do in the world. We started with 10 workshops, and we now have over 1,000 workshops that we deliver in the area for the repair and restoration of one's self-worth. That's all we do. And we've had every walk of life, every age, every background, many different cultures, because at the end of the day, it's like we all bleed red. Self-worth is like that. All right, over to you, Louise. Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I so thoroughly enjoyed this, and I feel like just from having skimmed over the comments, I think there's a lot of people here who have got questions they want to ask. I think we've touched a nerve with a lot of people. We've done quite a lot of. I think everyone's done a little bit of introspection during this session, which is really fantastic. I'm going to start with Tambu has been very active in the chat, and she's got a hand raised. So Tambu, would you like to open your microphone and go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you, Louise, and thank you very much, Dr. Laurie. I must apologize in advance. I'm going to keep my video off because I'm in bed. It's winter right now in Joburg, and it's very cold. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, oftentimes, you can approach sessions like this, and it's like, yes, we know already. I've read a lot of self-help talk books, but then you breaking it down in a simplified manner and separating self-worth from confidence and communication, and then bringing it all back together. It really helps you now really interrogate yourself honestly. My question is, I I became an adolescent in the United States. I came many years ago, 1998 to 2003, did my first degree there. And the culture there really encouraged self-expression because I was coming from a country, Zimbabwe in Africa, where having your own individual voice was frowned upon because it's very anchored on community. And so you come to America, and it encourages self-expression, individualism, and it promotes that. And I think it's tied into entrepreneurship and innovation. That's the environment. And then you leave and you come back again home after you graduate. To be honest with you, Dr. Laurie, it took me years to adjust because the environment seemed to want to strip away the self-value and the re-identification that you had found yourself through the American culture, because they want to redefine what your self-worth is. You're not they don't promote individualism, they promote more community. So how do you protect your self-worth without being swallowed up by a culture that dictates to you where your value is in a community?
Well, how I would respond to that would be, and thank you, that's a very good question. How I would respond to that is I had to become extremely resilient because in my generation, okay, I just turned 77. I think I shared that. In my generation, as a woman, as a white woman living in Canada, if you wanted to be a professional in the 60s, when I graduated from high school, you were limited to a teacher, a nurse, maybe a hairstylist, or a secretary. And so that was very limiting, if you will, that way. And, trying to get you into a box. I've had to, and as a woman, to start a business like I did in an industry that is predominantly male, the speaking industry, most people can name a famous male speaker, but they cannot name a famous female speaker. So I stepped into an industry that was dominated by men. That's the seminar business. So I remember earlier I said, the one big mistake I made in business, I've done a lot of things right, but I've done a lot of things wrong. So when I started buying into that environment that you're talking about, or that culture, or tried to become part of it, anything that ever made me uncomfortable, I knew wasn't good for me. So if I was in a room full of people and I was uncomfortable with what was being said to me, because in my heart I knew better myself, that's how I became more resilient. So I'm very cautious today about who I allow to influence me. And it's very difficult to lead me down a garden path. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but as you start to recognize, hey, uh, there's only one me in the whole world. You know what? There's no other Laurie Davis. There's no other Helen. There's no other Louise. And there's no other Tambu. You see? There's nobody ever like you, ever. They don't have your voice. They don't have your eyes. They don't have your smile. And so stick with that and be that best version of yourself. Did that help you?
Yes, Dr. Laurie, that is very, very helpful. And resilience is something I continue to work on daily. And you're absolutely
Mhm.
right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And the very last hurdle that I had to get through in my growth, my own, because I wasn't always well. I was very controlling. Look what I picked for a career, teacher. I mean, you can't have a more controlling environment than that. Okay, like really, because that's because I had to be in control, and I always had my finger in everybody else's business and my sisters and do. But the one thing that I really worked hard on was to stop being offended. When we get offended, that's when we fall back into that low self-worth behavior, and we can get really nasty. And that's not who we were when we were born. We came here loving, peaceful, non-judgmental. All of those values and qualities are inside of us. I say you don't, there's a quote, a boy doesn't want to really steal a car. He just wants to really steal third base in a game of ball. And I really love that. So, um, yeah, the resilience. And another thing that we do, the low self-worth does, it always feels the need to explain itself. So people who talk a lot, talk too much, it's always about justifying why they think a certain way or why they, are doing certain things. It's like this justification always going on for who I am. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? You don't have to apologize to anybody for who you are. You don't have to explain yourself. You just say what you need to say and let it go. A lot of times you'll hear people speaking and they're repeating themselves over and over. You'll hear the same thing. In one conversation, they'll tell you the same story 3 times. That's because that person, what they're really saying is, I never feel heard. So our communication is directly linked to our self-worth as well. So we share, workshops on how to increase your level of empowering language rather than language that's going to disable you. Because the minute you disable you or disrespect you, you can count on other people doing that for you as well. You actually give other people permission to disrespect you. All right. Any other questions?
There's a
Sorry, over
great
to you, Louise.
question that Nyasha has put into the chat. Nyasha, would you like to go ahead and ask your question through your mic? If you can.
Can you read the question, Louise? I
I
don't see it.
can. I was hoping that she would find it. So
Yeah.
she's actually asking the big question here. How then can I dismiss the trauma and repair my self-worth?
Well, the first thing we have to recognize is that we've been traumatized. I was queen of denial. And I'm not talking about a river in Egypt. I was queen of denial. People would say to me, "Oh, how are things going, Laurie?" I go, "Just great. Everything's just great. I love my life." And inside, I was dying inside. Or they would say, "How's the business going?" And maybe it wasn't going. And I'd say, "Oh, perfect, like you can't imagine." Because I'd listened to a lot of those motivational speakers who said you should just think positively. They didn't talk anything about healing your trauma, so you could just be positive. To be positive takes a lot of energy if you're not really feeling it. It's an intellectual activity. And if you don't feel positive, it's hard to be positive. So just be that. Be what you want to be. If you want to be positive, be positive. If you want to be negative, because guess what? One can't function without the other. So to dismiss is a great word. You'll never forget what has happened to you, but it doesn't have to control you. And so we learn how to live with the trauma because you'll hear people say, "Oh, I'm going to send my husband to anger management because he's so angry." Well, let's find out why he's angry. You see? Or they'll send alcoholics to detox or, a support group. I had a client who'd been to detox 19 times. You know why? Because they never figured out why he was drinking in the first place. So the healing comes with acknowledging that you have been traumatized and we're going to experience more trauma. I'm 77 and I just, lost my dog. That was traumatic for me. And it was, and I felt bad because I just said to a friend, he was just a dog. And my friend said, "Oh no, 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 no. He was a family member." So same grief as when you lose a family member. So we're all going to face trauma. So we might as well just get used to it, that it exists. It's not going away. But when you're armed up with that self-worth, that sense of personal value, you can handle things so much better. So much better. Whether whether it's a disease. I'm a cancer survivor. I had cancer. I couldn't believe that I was diagnosed with cancer. And I had to have a hysterectomy. And the cancer was gone, no treatments, no pills, no anything, because I had already decided that cancer is not going to be part of my future. So my doctor was excellent. We took care of everything. Early detection, gone. But you know what causes cancer? Stress. That's what causes cancer. And I had just come out of a stressful situation. It was COVID, just post-COVID. And during COVID, I almost lost my business. I lost my home during COVID. So I'm a statistic, you see. But I handled it. I found another place, put everything together, and moved on. So I hope that answers the question. It's a process. You don't just wake up one day and say, "Hey, okay, I'm over my trauma." No, because most people don't even want to go there. And people will say to me, "Dr. Laurie, if your workshops are about me dredging up the past and going through stuff, I don't want to go there." And I go, "Well, guess you're going to be sick all the rest of your life then." You have to clean house. It's like going inside and vacuuming yourself. And especially for those of us in the front lines of organizations or jobs or where we're dealing with other people, we need to be healthy ourselves in order to deal with other people. So we have a situation in Canada, I don't know about other countries, but we have a lot of unhealthy people helping unhealthy people. And guess what? It's not working. Our suicide rate is through the roof. Our chronic acute illness is through the roof. It's just crazy. And COVID really did smack me hard. And I'm just now rebuilding from then. That's how long it can take. So hope that helps. One of the things that you can do at home after the class, if you'd like to do a little assignment, and this will help with this question, make a list of 10 personal losses you've endured in your lifetime. The top 10, and you can go back to as early as you want in your childhood, and just make a list of 10 things that happened that were disappointing or hurt you or caused you grief. And that's a first step in helping to work on the trauma. Acknowledgement. And hey, it's okay. One more little thing about that. You know, when you're going through some bad stuff, you think you're the only person in the world feeling this way today. Oh my goodness, no. There's 8.5 billion people, and I'll guarantee you somebody else is feeling exactly the same way you are today. You're not alone, and nobody escapes. And that's a good feeling. Mm-hmm.
There are so many fantastic comments in the comment section. I feel like everybody's going through a therapy session here. This is so interesting. Honestly,
Yeah, but
oh no,
here's the thing. I'm
no.
not a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I don't want to be a therapist.
No. But isn't
Right?
it good? You know, I do think it's funny. I feel
Yeah.
like I don't know if it's 21st century thing. I don't know if this is maybe the world of work today or something. And I recognize that we live in times where we talk much more openly, as you mentioned before, in, a couple of decades back. You shouldn't react to things. You can't be too angry. You can't be too joyful. You can't be too expressive and too emotive because it was considered inappropriate in different ways. And I feel today we are much better at that. But still, I feel like that, has left sort of certain I don't know, certain barriers for a lot of us psychologically, and we still have difficulty in expressing what we want. And, as lots of people have said here, I don't know how to say, ask for what I want. I feel I can't ask for money if I'm in a financially tight spot. I can't ask for what I want at work. I can't ask for my worth. If I go to a job interview, I can't negotiate my salary, all these things. So it's very, very interesting. It's so interesting to talk about this. I've got one question I would just like to pick up from the chat here, which came from Mongo. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Who's asking, what is the difference between self-worth and self-appreciation?
I would say the line is fine. I think it's just another way to express self-worth, self-appreciation, self-esteem, self-respect, self-regard. That boils down to pretty much the same thing. And if you can appreciate who you are and love who you are, that's self-worth. That's one thing I do qualify when I take on clients. I tell them I'm not a therapist and I'm not a counselor, but I figured out from an educational perspective how to support people with some of those difficult concepts that they may not otherwise even be aware of. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you. Do people save their chat in your calls, Louise?
Yes, I will have access to the chat. Yes, absolutely. I can share that. Yes.
But we can all save it too if we go up. on our three
Yep,
dots
yep.
up there.
Well, what I'll do is I'll share when I share because we've got a recording of the session. I'll share it with everybody, and the chat.
Oh, great.
Usually the chat should be available in the replay. But yes, look at the comments here. Everybody's had such a wonderful time this afternoon. I really, really have. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. It's so interesting. What a great reminder of the importance of self-worth, and even what you just said about stress and the impact of stress on our health, and not only our mental health but on our physical health, and of course the wider impacts of that on family, friends, and so on. It's something that we really should take even more seriously than we already do. Yeah. Miriam, I really needed to hear this. Yes, Miriam, I completely agree. I totally. Sharon, an inspiring session. Fully agree. Very grateful to be here. Absolutely. Yes. Fabulous. Can I just bring in Helen very quickly? Helen, would you like to just come
Yes.
and say hi? I would love if you would.
Yeah. No, thank you very, very much, Dr. Laurie. Thank you, Louise, for arranging this session. And everybody, welcome to our EBU family. We have these bi-monthly talks. I started my journey of personal development so much that we focus so much on your professional part and you leave out the personal. And you realize that as you ascend into positions of more responsibility, positions of authority, there's still that something in you that was never corrected, or you never addressed, or you probably chose never to address, or you didn't even know how to address. So beginning of the summer, this is where I had my fortunate fate. I met Dr. Laurie, and together started attending her sessions and working towards dealing with my self-worth, dealing with past traumas, and just how do you become a better, wholesome person. And with that, I thought it was really befitting to extend Dr. Laundry. She's just a fraction of what we do and what she does. I mean, a fraction of what she does, and I wanted to extend it to the EBU community. And thank you so much for finding time to be here. I mean, self-worth is like a never-ending journey. I mean, when you look back and reflect, I'm at a point now where I have learned to speak freely of what my issues are, what my traumas are, my disappointments, my challenges. I'm being an African woman and, from Botswana, I'm currently residing in Canada, a world whereby we are not supposed to speak. And if you speak, you have no manners. If you speak, you have no respect. I mean, or even holding people accountable. You can't, when you hold your aunt accountable, hold your father accountable, your mother, she'll call the whole family, oh, Helen has got no manners. Helen is insulting me. But this is where you find that we're still struggling to find that balance, and with also our wholeness. You'd find somebody who's a CEO, and oh, this woman is a CEO, but she's earning so much money, she's so rich, but she's still bitter, she's still mean. Because a lot of us have not worked on ourselves because we're in an environment that never allowed us to work on ourselves. So we do realize that we're not perfect, but how do we aspire to be close to perfect? I mean, it's through sessions like this. And what with Dr. Laurie, which I would invite you all, I'm sure she'd have her address, or otherwise just through Louise or just through me. If you do search me, you'll find somewhere where we will give you Dr. Laurie's details. She has these beautiful sessions that I've also been part of those sessions where I am actually learning also to become, well, she doesn't call herself a coach, but whether a wellness advocate, wellness coach. So this is I'm learning the journey. And with that, this is the work we do where you would be engaging with individuals and corporates, where it is something that also we're talking about mental health. We talk about the front end of it, but we're not addressing the back end. How did we get here? How did we get to the alcohol abuse? Just this weekend there was an article that I was intrigued to write on alcohol abuse, this whole youth where we find that parents are being bullied by children. Parents are in trouble. But how did we get here? We're so quick to say, hey, Helen is out of hand, call uncle, come give her a hiding. I mean, that's very acceptable, the part of the world where we come from. When I'm out of line, my father calls my uncles for a hiding. So, but then what we're not addressing the back end. So it also comes from the whole communication that has been flawed or has been lapsed or that has been ignored. And ultimately, we find ourselves not just with terminal illnesses, cancer being one of them, and many more, hypertension, because we never addressed our trauma, something as simple as that. So with that, I'm very, very grateful for you being here today. Please spread the word, share the word, and the video will be made available. And yes, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that, I'm also work in progress with no shame, no fear or stigma or opinion, I had to find that time to work on myself and be a better, wholesome Helen. But with that, thank you so much for being part of us this afternoon. This is why we do what we do. We love what we do. And I've seen, Dumi here, she's my colleague on in my class, one of them studying that, it's our culture that contributes to who we are. But our traditionalists, leaders in the community, are they ready to hear that? So that is also, at least when you're working on yourself, you know better that, whatever happens, it shouldn't take away from my self-worth. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, and I see we've got more ladies than the men, and that's also another problem that exists when you tell the gentleman, oh, I'm okay, I don't need that, it's a women's thing. Hell no, it's not a woman's thing. It's for us all. It is for all of us. We're all victims of trauma. We've all suffered trauma, and we will still continue to suffer trauma. But right now, where the skills that we now need to learn today is what we've learned today is the skills how to navigate that. So that, you hear somebody, you've heard of those stories where a whole executive or a business person, one day they commit suicide. One day they just let it all crash, they're in a mental asylum because of the years and years and years of trauma. But with that, I'd like to invite, if Mawumo is still on the call, maybe she's left, or somebody to come and say thank you. I've just said my thank you and emphasize why we do what we do. I had invited Bui. There is also Bui. I mean, many of you that invited, but again, the seniority. This is my elder. So Bui, if you're around, please can you do just 30 seconds of a thank you? Otherwise, Duminso says there again, 30 seconds of a thank you. And thank you once, everybody, for being here with us this afternoon.
Hey, Helen, thank you and greetings to all in this chat. I appreciate the invitation greatly. It's a subject that we can never stop talking about because it impacts and affects generations, and if left unattended, it then causes a ripple effect that affects our children, even though they are at times dealing with traumas and issues that our great parents faced, and sometimes they don't even know how to balance the past and their current challenges and environment. So it's quite important to continue holding such conversations and to make sure that we are healing, and healing is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So I appreciate this and continue, as sharing the message and, encouraging us to participate in such sessions. Thank you very much, Helen. I appreciate, and even to the facilitator, I appreciate that, ma'am. Thank you very much, Dr. Laurie. I appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Laurie has got her number on WhatsApp, so she's I'm no gatekeeper, she's no gatekeeper of herself, so that's her direct WhatsApp number. So if you need to engage, be a guest at one of the sessions she hosts, she'll let you know all about it. And my good friend Natandani, thank you so much. And I see this is your daughter in Joburg, Tambu, thank you so much for being here. And yes, and all of you, I mean, I wish I had all the time to single you out. I see Juarata, I see Buisi Day, Melina, a lot of you, thank you so much. And don't feel that, there was any special preference over another, just the names that I saw, and in the interest of time. Otherwise, I'd love to read each and every single one out, and thank you once again.
I completely echo that, Helen. Yes, thank you so much, everyone. As you will all remember from my comments from last week, we cannot continue EBU Talks without an audience. And I invite everybody to come and join us when we set up these sessions. And I'm so very grateful that you're here. Thank you very much for making it a dynamic discussion. Thank you for your contributions. It is hugely, hugely appreciated. Thank you all. Dr. Laurie has put her email address into the chat as well, so you can contact her that way. Free events and workshops, yes, absolutely. I am sure that a number of us who are present today will be joining your mailing list and so on to be part of your sessions, because I certainly enjoyed it today. I feel like I learned a lot, given me a lot of things to think about. I've got to do my list of 10 personal losses I've got to start doing perhaps later on today, and see if I'm ready to acknowledge all of my trauma. Who knows? Not in any way to belittle it, because it's so important. So thank you, everybody. One more time, if you can, a little round of applause in the reactions for Dr. Laurie for joining us all the way from Alberta, for Helen also joining us from Alberta. It's wonderful to have you all here. As usual, I would like to do a little screenshot for the end. So if you don't mind, if you are happy switching on your cameras and if you are comfortable with having your photograph taken, please do. And I'll do a quick screenshot and everybody can smile. And then this will give us a nice little memento of our session this afternoon. So I'll give you a few seconds to go and open up your cameras if you're comfortable. I've also launched an attendance poll, everybody. So I think most of us have answered. I'll leave that. I'm gonna close it now. Okay. Oh, you see, it's so nice when I can see everybody's faces. It's really pleasant.
Well, I was wondering about that. This seems to be a thing. If you're shy about coming on the camera, that's evidence to you about something. I mean, I would have loved to have had all these beautiful faces to look at while I was speaking. I thought maybe I'd have to get some cardboard people and put them over here by my laptop so I would feel like I'm talking to real people. So always, if your internet allows it, sometimes it doesn't. I understand that. But isn't this more fun seeing
Yes.
everybody? In our meetings, we actually have a protocol that you can't be in the meeting unless you're on the camera. So if you come to my workshops or events or anything we're doing, it will be an expectation. So
Do your
looking good,
hair. Yeah.
looking
Do your
good.
hair. Exactly. Okay, everybody, give me a smile. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to take a little photo of everyone who's here. Okay, look at these beautiful smiles. I wish I'd seen you all earlier. Here we go. Fabulous. I'm going to do everybody who's on page 2. Oh, I don't have a lot of people on page 2, but I've got Celestine, I've got Malilo, I've got Rebecca, I've got Duncan. Oh, yes, you're all coming on. That's wonderful. Okay, hold on, because you all deserve to be on our photo too. So I'm going to take your photos. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, give me a smile. There we go. Wonderful. Great. Well, listen. Thank you once again, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to see you all. A new session of EBU Talks will be coming in July. So I'll be sharing the details of that with you very soon. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Absolute pleasure to see you. And I'm so, so, so pleased to see from your comments today how much you've all enjoyed this session today. Thank you very much. Don't hesitate to send us your feedback through LinkedIn and so on. And please keep in touch. If you're not a student of EBU, please don't hesitate to come and follow us on our different activities on LinkedIn, social media. We would love to, we'd love to keep in touch, and we'd love to see you. Even if you would like to come and learn something new with us, you'll be very, very welcome. I'm going to wish you all a very pleasant evening, afternoon, day, wherever you are in the world. Thank you one more time. Huge, huge thank you once again to Dr. Laurie. Been an absolute pleasure. I'll share the replay with everybody, and you'll have all of the links. Dr. Laurie, if you don't mind, I'll put your email address and so on, make it available to everybody when I share the replay. Okay.
Sure. And I would just like to, I was remiss in acknowledging a team member of mine is here as well. Besides Helen, Mr. Don Stuckey, he's one of our male facilitators. So just thank you, Don, for coming in and supporting the call.
Hey, Dawn.